How's it going, Dan?
Yes. Yes. That's how it's going. It's going great.
Good.
How are you, sir?
I am doing great.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for being here, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, thank you for joining us today. If you don't know who the heck we are, I'll tell you. This is Steve Stine. You may have heard of him. His YouTube videos have about a gazillion views. If you're on YouTube, you've probably seen him if you play guitar. So he's that guy. Steve Stine. And I'm Dan Denley, founder of guitar-Zoom.com. It's my sidekick, my friend, my confidant, my partner in crime, Steve Stine. And today we are doing a fretboard workshop for you. This is part of a series of videos that we're doing to help you learn your fretboard. And hopefully you'll get a lot out of this. Guys, if you're just joining us, please let us know you can hear us okay by putting in the comments, that little chat box there, or wherever you're watching this. Yes, I can hear you. Steve?
Yes, check 1, 2.
Sounds great to me.
Okay.
Sounds great to me. So today we're going to be talking about the old fretboard, how this stuff goes together on your fretboard. If you'd like to learn this stuff, keep watching. If you want to learn it even faster, go to guitarzoom.com and you can check out Steve's Unlocking the Fretboard Connection course. One of our most popular courses, very affordable, teaches you all of the pentatonic patterns, the diatonic patterns, and how they kind of click together like a puzzle. It has rave reviews. It's one of the most popular courses that we have. And I think one of the biggest comments we get is, I wish I had had this course 20 years ago when I first started playing guitar. I would be so far ahead. So if you'd like to check that out, it's available at guitarzoom.com. Today we're going to be talking about how the pentatonic, what are we talking about? Minor, major pentatonic, right?
People get confused on this major minor stuff, so I thought we'd talk about a couple of things. Number one, how to take your minor pentatonic, which most of us learn first, and simply convert it into major pentatonic by moving it a few frets. And then also talk a little bit about the difference between minor and major pentatonic. So
sounds great. So guys, check it out. Major minor pentatonic today. Thanks for being here. And by the way, if you want to get notified of when we do these live sessions, just make sure you subscribe and click that notify button. A little message or notification pops up when we're going to be going live. We try to do it at a consistent time, so you kind of know when it's going to be happening, but it's always good to get a little notice there. So if you want to do that, make sure you subscribe and click the notify me button. All right, Steve, take it away, my friend.
Okay, so basically when you first start learning about scales and things like that, most of us start with pentatonic. Again, there's a million ways you can approach this sort of thing, but my experience was learning what we call minor pentatonic. And because I had a limited amount of knowledge of music, it always seemed strange to me that I was starting with minor pentatonic because I didn't know if the songs where I was playing in were major or minor in the first place. And then the person that I was learning from said, no. The reason you want to learn minor pentatonic is because you can use minor pentatonic in multiple situations. If you're playing in rock or you're playing in blues and things like that, minor works over all of that. So he said, don't really think about the key, just think that you can use it in a lot of situations. And he was right. So so I started learning minor pentatonic. Let me click on this quick. So minor pentatonic, like many of you might know how to do that first position of minor pentatonic, right? So that's what I learned, and that's really all I knew. Like, I didn't understand multiple positions and things like that, but that's what I knew. And I would play it for literally everything that I would do. Now, the majority of what I did when I was younger was rock and metal anyway, so it always worked, but there did come a time when major would have been really nice to have explored a bit more. And so what I learned in what I...
Oh, man, I thought you were going to tell the story.
Oh, no. Well, there's multiple stories because, again, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but when you're a rock guitar player, you learn to play what I call linear, which means you're really not making a lot of connection to chords and things like that. You're playing more for the flash and the speed and things like that. And I'm not making fun of it, and I'm not making light of it because I love it. But when you start learning to play more major stuff, like one of my first experiences was Neil Schon from Journey. he could shred like a minor pentatonic or minor shredder, but play major stuff that Journey played. Steve Lukather was another one that was just amazing at that kind of stuff. So those were guys that I studied some of this stuff to kind of figure out how this works. But my point is, though, is if you're stuck in minor pentatonic, and you might be learning maybe the first position and the second position or whatever it might be, there's a simple way that we can move to major pentatonic, and it's a visual movement. Okay, I still strongly suggest somewhere in your world that you learn the whys and the hows and things like that. But right now, let's just do this from a visual perspective. So if I wanted major pentatonic, what I would do is, whenever I'm in minor pentatonic, what I think about is this first position, okay, that you learn how to play. And you'll notice my first finger is on the note A. Okay? So if I wanted C minor pentatonic, I would just move that first finger up to C and then play that same minor pentatonic position. If I wanted to be in G minor pentatonic, I'd move down to G and play the same first minor pentatonic position. That's the beauty of the guitar, is that you can move it into all the other keys simply by knowing which note is... you're out of frame there, Dan. You're all fuzzy. I'm not sure what...
I don't know.
There he is. He's back. Okay, so anyway, I digress. So minor, you can move wherever you want with your first finger. If you just think that your first finger starts on the root, whatever that is, you'd be in minor pentatonic. So when I wanted major pentatonic, what I learned was I could take this minor pentatonic, first finger on A, take the minor pentatonic, and move toward the headstock 1, 2, 3 frets. Now, when I move down 3 frets, what you're going to notice is my first finger is now on F sharp, but my pinky is now on A. Okay? So, to play A major pentatonic, if we wanted A minor pentatonic, again, I put my first finger there, play the first position, I'm in A minor pentatonic. If I want A major pentatonic, I can move that way, 1, 2, 3 frets. But now F sharp isn't my primary note. My pinky, which is A, becomes my primary note. So if I play that same scale, this, but I move it down 1, 2, 3 frets, but I'm going to start on A, just so you hear the tonality of A, and I'm going to play all the way up and all the way back down. It becomes a major pentatonic just by moving that down 3 frets. Now, the confusion I had, and you might have as well, is, well, what about the F sharp? Like, why can't I play the F sharp? And the answer is, you can play the F sharp. The F sharp is in there, okay? But the difference is that in music, if you were a singer or a guitar player or a saxophone player or whatever it is you want to be, if the song is in A, regardless of the scale that you're choosing, you want to try and direct your motion, your movement through your scale, toward things that relate to A, and obviously A relates to A, right? If I want to be in A, and I'm playing in minor pentatonic, now there's many other notes that I can try and move toward, or emphasize, we call it, okay? But A is obviously one of them. So when I move down to A major pentatonic by moving down 1, 2, 3 frets and starting on my pinky, I'm trying to emphasize the overall sound of the note A. That's why I'm starting on my pinky. It's not like F sharp can't be played. I can go, but I want to go back to that A. So what's cool about that is, regardless of however many positions of, for instance, A minor pentatonic or minor pentatonic you would know, it all shifts down 3 frets, and then you can play major pentatonic by doing that. Now again, there's a ton of different ways of visualizing the fretboard. This is just one of them, but it worked really well for me because then what I could do is I could visualize, let's say my A chord is sitting right here. If I wanted A minor pentatonic, I could play right there like I always do. And if I wanted A major pentatonic, I would visualize my pinky going on the note A. And then my A major would be down there. And I get those kind of A major southern rock kind of sounds by playing A major pentatonic, where when I wanted blues or rock, then I would use A minor pentatonic, and that's the next thing I want to get to, but I'm going to see if there's anything Dan wants to interject here.
Bro, I have been playing guitar a very long time. I've studied music a very long time. I've never heard it explained like that. That is really nice. Yeah, no, I haven't. I've always thought about it because to me, whenever I think about minor and because I'm classically trained, I always think like, what's the relative minor of this? And so my brain automatically goes to, oh, A minor, and then what's the relative major of that?
So if you're watching, Dan's thinking of it from a theoretical perspective because he grew up playing piano and learned his theory. I didn't do that. I didn't grow up playing any of that. Everything for me was visual. When I first started learning to play, the only information I got was watching what few guitar players I knew do stuff, and then they would throw me a bone here and there of something that I could kind of explore on my guitar, but I had very little information, so my history of playing was visual. It wasn't theoretical. So you can see how, for me, like the A major scale, well, just what I just showed you, A major was moved down. Now, let me keep going here just for a second. Yeah. So if you know more than one position, and if you don't sweat this, but I want to show you this because this is super cool. Because if I know my first position of A minor pentatonic, and again, for me to remember which one is which, minor meant first finger, major meant pinky. That's how I thought about it in my head. So if I wanted minor pentatonic, I went to first the A here, and I'd play minor pentatonic. If I wanted major pentatonic, I'd put my pinky there, and that would set me up for my major pentatonic. But if you know more than one position, let's say you know A minor pentatonic, first position, that we just talked about, but you also know the second position, right? And if you don't worry about it, but if you know the second position, it just connects onto the first position. So when I'm in major pentatonic, this first position shifts down here, right? And I play here. Well, the second position is sitting right here. So the second position is actually sitting where the first position is sitting. They're both kind of overlapping each other, and this was huge for me. And again, this is a conversation for later, but learning how to visualize the major and the minor in the same position, because for years, minor meant I'm here at the 5th fret, and major meant I got to move down, right? And then once I figured out that I didn't have to actually move anywhere, like I just had to rethink what I was seeing in my head to see minor pentatonic or major pentatonic, and that they actually could both exist and work together in the same area of the fretboard. So I could have a chord, I could have minor pentatonic, I could have major pentatonic, I could have all kinds of things happening at the same time, kind of like a 3D picture of all of these things that are kind of overlapping each other. So
that is fascinating.
Yeah.
No, I want to ask you some more questions about that. My brain's on fire now that with questions for you guys. If you have questions, please put them in the comments or the chat. Let us know so we can address those either here or in an upcoming session. If you're just joining us, this is the Fretboard workshop series that we're doing here for you. And if you like this stuff and how to combine major and minor pentatonics, and you really want to learn this fretboard stuff, Steve has an awesome course. It's called Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. It's available for you at guitarzoom.com. It's one of our most popular courses, and it's very affordable, and it's one of those things that it's a complete game changer for a lot of players. So if you're enjoying this, you will definitely like that course, Unlocking the Fretboard Connection, at guitarzoom.com. Steve, I was just thinking that was a big moment for me just when you were showing just how, you just move that down. Can you give us, it was so cool when you were moving in and out of the minor and major pentatonic there, like just kind of jamming along, like here's this southern rock thing, you kind of got this major thing going on, and then you're like, if you have the rock thing, it sounds like this, and you completely like flipped a switch and went into the minor thing, and it sounded completely different to my ears. I was wondering if you could show us kind of how that, like maybe just do that same exact thing, but move it to different keys so people could be like, oh yeah, I hear what it sounds like an A, and then you could just transpose the exact thing up to or down. Well, G would probably be hard, but maybe B
Right.
or whatever you
Well,
want to do.
and then, okay, so I'll just say this, because in some other of the conversations that Dan and I are going to have, I'm going to go way further into this stuff. So you're going to learn
Okay, great.
how to combine all these things and visualize. I got a bunch of cool stuff planned for us.
Cool.
But today, to keep these separate, let's just talk about, we're going to keep them separate, but let's look at or let's listen to the sound.
Yeah.
So if I was to do this, like if I was to take the minor pentatonic. Now, before I even go into this, understand that I've always referred to it as the theory of rock and roll. Now, the theory of rock and roll is kind of, it doesn't have rules. Like theory has rules. Theory has all these guidelines. And the theory of rock and roll has some guidelines, I suppose, but the rules don't really make sense. So the first thing that I had to learn was that just because I was playing minor pentatonic did not mean I had to be in a minor key. And that's what I'm going to talk about with you. Just because I'm in major pentatonic does not mean I have to be in a major key, although it kind of does. And we're going to talk about that too.
Okay.
So minor pentatonic is like this blanket scale, pentatonic we're talking, is this blanket scale that can be used in multiple situations, whether the chords are major or minor, whether the key is major or minor. You can get away with a lot of stuff because of the theory of rock and roll. And the reason for that is because of blues. Now, we're not going to get all deep into blues, but oftentimes blues music was based off 3 major chords, but they would solo minor pentatonic over the major, which didn't really make any logical sense, but when they did it, it sounded like blues. It sounded like rock and roll. So then you had Elvis Presley, and you had the Beatles, Revolution, all this kind of stuff, Get Back, whatever it might
Zeppelin.
be, moving into the Stones, moving into Zeppelin, all the way up. So the thing here is that when you solo minor pentatonic, you're going to get more of a rock and roll sound. When you solo in major pentatonic, you're going to get more of a major, happy, or possibly southern rockish kind of sound, depending on how you play. So in the theory of rock and roll, what I try and teach people is minor pentatonic is a place to go and use minor pentatonic anytime you want your solo to sound like rock and roll, even if the chord progression is major. Okay? Now, if you're playing in 10th grade jazz band and you've got a jazz song, chances are your jazz band teacher does not want you to make your solo sound like rock and roll. So the rules don't always apply. It depends on the situation you find yourself in. But if I was playing over a blues, and it's a major chord, but if I go, it's going to sound just fine over the top. It's actually going to sound really good. Mm-hmm. But over that, there's lots of different things I could do with major as well. So what I learned how to do was, if the song sounded like it needed more edge and more rock and roll, I'd play minor pentatonic. If the song sounded like it was more kind of reserved or it just kind of sounded like it needed to be more major to me. And again, you got to use your own discretion with these sorts of things. So oftentimes when you think of like early punk music, be the Ramones or the Sex Pistols or whatever it might be, the songs were basically major, but they would solo this kind of Led Zeppelin-y rock and roll blues thing over the top. Punk was a style of music that was intended it was like an anti-prog movement is really what it was. Going back to like surf style music that's 2-3 minutes long. And but they sometimes would have the New York Dolls, for instance, great guitar player in the New York Dolls, would do all this minor pentatonic stuff over the top, even though the songs were primarily major. Rock and roll has always done that, so just think about that. So if you're listening to the song and it seems like it needs more edge, you say play major pentatonic, or minor pentatonic, excuse me. Mm-hmm. If the song is minor, you use minor. Like let's say it's a ballad, like a really sad ballad, and it's in minor, then you're in minor. If the song is in happy, poppy, major, then you might want to try major pentatonic first. Unless you're trying to, like, a great example is, we used to do, in a band I was in, we used to do a song called Can't You See by Marshall Tucker. Mm-hmm. The chord progression's D to C, G, right? Whatever. Okay, so it's D, C, and G.
Nice.
So the solo, D major, right? So because I'm thinking D major, D, C, and G. The tonality to me is D. So I'd go to D major. So I'd find D, move down 3 frets, put my pinky on D, right? And if you think about that song, if you've ever heard it before, you know, all those kind of licks coming from that, okay? So I'd move into that and do whatever solo I'm going to do. You know, whatever. And then when it gets later in the song, this totally reminds me of something that Slash would do. So the song, later on, what we would do is we would have the drums kick in louder. We'd break down for an a cappella, can't you see? And then we'd come back out, and the drums would be kicking, and then I would go into, you know, and I'd go minor pentatonic at that point. So even though the song really isn't minor, but at the end of the song, to build all this power, I would go minor pentatonic at the end, and the band's playing louder, right? They're driving the song now. Maybe even goom ta, as opposed to halftime, we're going double time. And then the song would be driven, and I could really get more aggressive with, you know, whatever it might be with minor pentatonic stuff. And then when it comes back out again, let's see.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is, yeah. I haven't played this in a while, but, you know, so it comes back out to that thing, and then we'd be major again, you know?
Dude, that's fascinating. So let me make sure I understand what the heck you're talking about. When you're saying you're floating back and forth between major and minor pentatonic, you're talking about with the same tonic. You're talking about the same root note.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not going relative minor.
No. Same thing. Because now again, there's an element of modes here that we're not going to get into, but the thing about the theory of rock and roll is that traditional theory doesn't necessarily always apply. Right. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it totally does. But sometimes it doesn't. So you have to be ready to decide how you want it to sound. Like a lot of times people never learn major pentatonic, so they do everything in minor pentatonic. And again, I've talked to Dan about this before, but I used to get hired by a lot of the local high school jazz teachers because all of their students would learn minor pentatonic and then never learn anything else. So they'd join jazz band, high school jazz band, and everything sounded like they were playing a blues tune. The jazz teachers hated it because they didn't want everything to sound like a blues tune. They wanted jazz to sound like jazz, and if they did a blues tune, go do your thing. Sure. But nobody really, I shouldn't say nobody, but a lot of the kids didn't understand what major pentatonic is. And so there's absolutely a level of theory. Okay, don't get me wrong that you can learn this and never learn theory. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that in the rock world, or in the real world of pop and rock and whatever you want to call this stuff, there's sound. There's a sonic thing that happens with the scale that you're choosing and the way that you approach playing it, right? So if I'm in major pentatonic, and again, let's just say I'm in D major pentatonic, like I was before for this song. You know, I love like these double stoppy kind of sounds, sort of a Hendrixy kind of, you know, whatever those things are. And minor pentatonic to me is it's more aggressive. You know, so you can hear the difference. Cool. Yeah, you can hear the difference. And oftentimes when you listen to players that you really like, you're going to hear them do exactly what I'm doing right now. So, you know, I grew up learning a lot of, like, one of my favorite people when I was a kid was Angus Young. and I would hear him do all these whatever right here. I'd hear him do that, and I was like, okay, well, I'm learning my minor pentatonic, so I can see. Again, I can't remember how the whole thing goes, but he comes out of that. And then he goes into this. And I could see that. I'd look and go, oh, that's the second position. I got that. But then he'd go. I was like, that ain't minor pentatonic. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't fit into what I know. Right? And again, you don't know what you don't know. I had no frickin' idea what I was doing. But come to find out later that what he did and what a lot of players like him would do is they would shift between major and minor pentatonic. So he was in minor pentatonic, and then right here, then back. And then back to minor. Right there, he goes major. Then out to minor. And then he ends up major again. So, again, I don't want to dissect the whole song right now, but that was absolutely an epiphany for me, was learning about that, going, oh, so he's not just dedicating himself going, well, if I start in minor, I got to stay in minor the whole time, or, well, I chose major, so here I go. He'd shift back and forth. Jimmy Page, all those guys would do exactly what we're doing right now. And so for me, guys like Joe Perry from Aerosmith or Slash, they're old school because this is exactly how they think about playing. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're more of a metal guy, you're not really doing all of this shifting. You're more primarily minor, right? If you're more of a country player, you know, like pop country, for instance, you're definitely more major. Now, it doesn't mean that people don't cross the lines. Of course they do. You know, you got wonderful players like Keith Urban that can do all of that stuff. I'm just saying in general, that's kind of the way this works. So if you're a rock or a blues player, you kind of have this, or your music is influenced by rock or blues, like modern country or certain styles of country that has that bluesy flavor. Well, then you can borrow both of these styles of music or both of these major and minor ideas, and you can use them all over the place.
I think it adds an element to when you can mix the major and the minor pentatonic together in the same song, the same solo, it just adds an element of that kind of ear-bending quality, like you had the epiphany with the Angus Young thing, of you're just like, what is happening? And that's part of the fascination of playing music and being creative.
That's right. And what I'll say about that, because in one of our conversations coming up, I'm going to actually show you how to meld these two together. But the caution I would give you on any of this stuff I'm talking about is the ability to separate. Because sometimes when we meld things together, we can't bring them back apart. And then we just wind up with a bunch of notes, which is sometimes okay. But sometimes it's not the bunch of notes. Sometimes it's the way it's the weaving in and out of the major and the minor or whatever it is you're dealing with that gives you the sound, where if you just go and you play them all, you might get something really great out of it, but if you can't separate them again, you don't truly have a major thing and a minor thing that you can go back to.
That's right. That ability to switch back and forth is just sets you apart such an amazing way. This is fascinating, dude. Guys, if you're enjoying this, please keep watching. And if you want to go deep into what we're doing or what Steve's talking about, you know, this is just one aspect of it, but Steve has an amazing course called Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. It's available for you at guitar-zoom.com, one of our most popular courses, because it's usually this exact thing right here to get out of that kind of boxy idea or getting stuck in the pentatonic minor and being able to put these different elements together to really be more creative. Go ahead, my friend. This is endlessly fascinating for me. I could do this all day.
Well, that's all I want to talk about with that, because the next thing is going to open up a whole other topic of conversation. So I don't want to go any deeper than that.
Sounds good to me.
Again, caution you when you're learning these things, don't just kind of fleet by it, right? Don't just kind of gaze by it and then go on. Like if you really want to learn it, again, don't always adopt an all or nothing attitude where you have to know everything. Sometimes you just need a little something. Like for me, I got a lot of mileage out of this. Just that thing that I learned from Angus Young, and understanding and going, well, how can I see that? Okay, well, if I'm in the first position of minor, there it is, and then major was just a whole step higher. So even though I didn't understand everything about everything, and I hadn't gone to college, and I didn't understand all these other things, I understood that. So if I was in the key of A, I could find it. And I didn't have to play it exactly like the Angus Young lick, but I had it. Right? It was all there, and I could just bop into that, even though, again, maybe I didn't understand everything. But that was, an iconic moment for me to be able to see that and hear that. So when I came to solo, like I did before, I had my minor pentatonic, and I had my major, but I had this new thing that I learned from Angus Young. Which just sounded so cool to me. Then I could drop into my minor or major or whatever from there. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Hey guys, hope you've enjoyed this session. If you're just now joining us, this is the Fretboard workshop series that we're doing for you right here on the old YouTubes or wherever you're watching this. If you're enjoying this session, please subscribe and click the notify button so you can get notified of when we're doing another one of these. We're trying to do them consistently at the same time. It's a little difficult, but if you click that notification button, subscribe and notify, then you'll get the little notification that of when the next one's coming up, because we are going to do another one for you. If you've enjoyed this, excuse me, I think that you will really enjoy Steve's Unlocking the Fretboard Connection course. Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. It's one of our most popular courses. It's available at guitar-zoom.com. Goes into everything we talked about today and a whole lot more. It's not a course that's going to take you 5 weeks to get through or anything. You take 8 weeks to go through it if you want. You can go through it in a week if you wanted. It's really up to you, but it's not like a huge masterclass level that you're going to have to wade through tons of videos. It's something you can just get and let the light bulb come on for you just in a few days, I think, and practice and application. And if you only learn one thing from it, like how to combine those major and minors, like you were just talking right here, in a step-by-step way, probably be worth it for you. So Unlocking the Fretboard Connection, available at guitarzoom.com. Steve, anything else you want to add to this, my friend?
No, this is good.
Okay. Guys, thanks again for being here. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you taking part of your life to spend with us, chuckleheads. Hope you got something out of it. And hit the old subscribe and notify for the next one. Looking forward to it, Steve.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Bye.